Drive to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. Welcome to the middle of the week. So, all right, hang on a second. Don't do nothing. Don't do a thing. We got Boomer's not on the board. Boomer's over here on a extra mic.
I'm on an extra mic today.
Because Butters is on the board.
That's right.
Butters is a thing we do on Wednesdays. It's a special sound effect.
What's that?
We call it Hump Day. Hit that special button right there. There you go.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
All right, we're in. It's Hump Day. It's halfway to the weekend. You guys have made it halfway through the week. Congratulations on that. And Boomer, we already heard his voice. Butters, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's Hump Day.
It is Hump Day, and you're actually manning the buttons right now. So glad you're back in. Boom shakalaka, how you doing?
Oh, I'm making it. It's a good day.
I mean, it's a good day because you got somebody else pushing buttons.
I know. I'm just going to be sitting over here drinking some water, not coffee.
Does that make you the button boss?
Button boss. Be
right.
square.
Hey, we got a great show laid on for you. So coming up at 3 o'clock today, State Representative Anthony Daniels, the Democrat House Minority Leader from the State House, serves out of the Huntsville area. He will be on the show with us at 3 o'clock today. I'm thinking that there are some things about the way he worked things in the legislative process that make him look more like a player than we had ever seen, but at the same time also made him look more like a Republican. I'm just saying. I mean, when you get a guy who forces through a tax cut bill and convinces the governor to make it bigger and she sends it over with an amendment and everybody else just has to eat crow and do it, that's saying something. We're going to talk about that at 3 p.m. with State Representative Anthony Daniels. Y'all stay tuned for that. And then at 4 o'clock, it's Wednesday, so at 4 o'clock, the other thing we do on Wednesdays is the Grand Council. So my brethren, Jeff Poore from FM Talk 106.5 down in Mobile and Dale Jackson from WVNN, Rachar in Huntsville, will both be in with me at 4 o'clock for what we call the Grand Council. And then there's this whole triple dipper that I've still got, so hit it, Butters.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you have got to know as we run today's show. So, yeah, number 1 out the gate, there's this magic word they say in the legislative process, sine die. What is that? Latin for something along the lines of it is complete. But anyway, sine die. They adjourned sine die yesterday in Montgomery, meaning the legislative session is now concluded for the year 2023. So we're going to talk about what did and did not happen as they reached sine die. That's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, haters gonna hate. Haters just gonna hate. I've heard there's a song out there that says that. Haters gonna hate. Well, it's amazing to me that right here in Alabama, we have an organization called the Southern Poverty Law Center that specializes in allegedly pointing out hate when really what it does, in my opinion, is creates hate. And they have just stepped in it this year. I mean, not like they haven't done it before anyway. Believe it or not, the FBI and other news pundits and things all rely on the SPLC to tell them who's a hate group. And now who have they picked? I'll tell you about that in just a little while. Haters going to hate. And then number 3, praying under fire. This one's going to be interesting. I have come across multiple stories lately where people who are simply praying on the street in like basically a silent or at least a peaceful form of protest to something else going on across the street have been arrested. And you look at it and go, when did the thought police come in and say, you're not allowed to pray? I don't recall that law, but we're going to talk about it. Praying under fire, that's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me go over here to my comments and start my opening monologue for the day. And I'll just tell you, I am going to step out right now into a politically incorrect place. But, hey, what's new, right? There's a war right now. There's a war on manhood in America right now. A war on manhood. The idea is out there right now that it's okay for men to compete in women's sports, and it's celebrated when in fact it's really disgusting and embarrassing. The U.S. military says that only 23% of American men are fit to even enlist in the military. That's a pretty small percentage. But the war on manhood, it was already underway, and then Dylan Mulvaney showed up on, of all places, a Bud Light can. The fact that a biological male can be applauded as an influencer for prancing on video celebrating his 365 days to girlhood is a clear indication that something has gone awry. I read a book a while back. It's a small book by best-selling author Stephen Pressfield. It's called The Warrior Ethos. Now, Pressfield, he's already one of my favorite authors. He wrote an epic historical novel called Gates of Fire about the 300 Spartans who stood in the face of overwhelming odds against the Persian army. That book right now, by the way, is listed on the Rightside Radio website in our recommended reading list. But the other book that I'm talking about, The Warrior Ethos by Pressfield, he takes a chapter at a time to describe such politically incorrect things in great detail, such as duty, honor, and country, having a sense of humor under fire, the essence of courage, a sense of having civility and love but from a position of strength, or providing aid and support to the weak and emboldening others. Pressfield talks about inner wars, outer wars, and how to train up young men to be old warriors. In one very cool quote, he describes the attitude of a warrior, referring again to the Spartans in one of history's many quotes or stories attributed to that warrior society. And the quote goes like this, that there was a group of Spartan warriors approaching a crossroads, and they were met by a small group of beleaguered citizens who said to them, "You're lucky. Just a little while ago, a group of bandits was here." To which the Spartan leader replied, "No, they were the ones who were lucky." Those kind of attitudes, those character traits, if you will, many of which are learned behaviors, they're not just for soldiers. Truthfully, they're not just for men. I mean, women can have undaunted courage, right? Women can face crises with grace and poise. I'm married to a woman like that. I helped raise a woman like that. My son is like that, and he married a woman like that. But today I'm talking to men. It's what I know. I read something else recently. It was an opinion article. It was written by Ali Stuckey, titled "Make Men Masculine Again." It's worth the read, because there's a whole movement on the left right now to neuter manhood, to enshrine the beta male as the role for a model of society. I say hogwash to that. In her article, Stuckey made the point that when you try to make men more like women, you don't get less toxic masculinity, you get more. Why? Because bad men don't become good when they stop being men. They become good when they stop being bad. Aggression, violence, unbridled ambition, she said, can't be eliminated from the male psyche. They can only be harnessed. And when they're harnessed, they can become tools for good, not for harm. She went on to elaborate, and I thought she did a great job at this. She said, the answer to toxic masculinity isn't less masculinity, it's better masculinity. And we know what that looks like. What it looks like is a young man opening the door for a girl on their first date. It's a father working long hours to provide for his family. It's a soldier risking his life to defend his country. The growing problem in today's society is not that men are too masculine, it's that they're not masculine enough. Stuckey pointed out in her article, when men embrace their masculinity in a way that is healthy and productive, they are leaders, warriors, heroes. When they deny their masculinity, they run away from responsibilities. They leave destruction and despair in their wake. And the consequences, y'all, can be seen everywhere in our society right now. So understand me when I say this. I'm not saying that unless you can tote a gun or lift heavy weights or wear your hair in a conservative fashion or grow the best beard that you're not masculine enough. That's not what I'm saying at all. True masculinity is not defined by your age or your status or your outward appearance. It's a compilation of more esoteric things like character, like the warrior ethos, like a work ethic, like care and concern for others, like self-sacrifice, courage. It's little things sometimes like standing up to bullies, like speaking out for your beliefs, like sacrificing a little bit of your me time to spend time with your child, like opening the door for your wife, like paying your employees before you pay yourself, like checking on a friend in need. Again, don't confuse this monologue with some kind of preconceived notion of the poster boy for true masculinity. You don't have to be the Marlboro Man or a member of SEAL Team 6 or somebody who knows how to spit dip without getting it on your shirt. You can be rough without losing your civility. You can have callous hands and even still wear a tie to work every day. You can be a father who's not able to be with your kids every day, and you can still be a dad to them. Now, true, the attitude of roughness and masculinity is often embodied in a mental picture of harsh ruggedness. I mean, George Orwell said, "People sleep peacefully in their beds at night because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf." I get it. In my day, I've known a lot of dudes, a lot of action guys, operators, members of America's elite special operations, first responders, dudes with grit and determination. A lot of them did not fit the visual stereotypical mold, to be honest. I mean, a lot of them don't live up to what a poster of masculinity would be, but they were masculine nonetheless, like in the Bible. When he was preparing to crown the future king of Israel, Samuel was taken aback that it was supposed to be David, a small guy. He was called the least among his family, the least among the tribes. But God told Samuel in 1 Samuel 16:7, "The Lord does not see as a man sees. A man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So I don't care if you've never earned a medal. I don't care if you haven't got a penny to your name. I don't care if you have a physical disability. I don't care if you've made mistakes in your past. I don't care about any of that. Let me say right here and now, the society will be better off if men will act like men with a sense of masculinity that transcends what they look like on the outside. If they do, it will definitely resonate to everyone around them. So going back again to that article by Allie Stuckey, she concluded better than I could do, so here's what she had to say. She said this: "The devaluation of masculinity, it won't end well because feminine passive men don't stop evil. Passive men don't defend. Passive men don't protect or provide. Passive men don't lead. Passive men don't do the things that we've always needed men to do for society to thrive. Rape and murder and war, they all have two things in common: bad men who do the raping and the murdering and the warring, and the weak men who won't stop them. We need good men who will." It's not masculinity that's toxic. It's the lack of it. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there you have it. And in today's society, by the way, and as we move into this whole Pride Month debacle that we're in right now, the celebration of everything that men should not be, the celebration of everything that really is not masculine, the idea that men should set aside their masculinity and be more feminine. I reject every bit of that. And I don't care what you look like or how big a weight you can lift or anything else. Masculinity is the inside. It's who you are. And we need more masculine men. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm ready, sir.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, the text lines are open, by the way. If you want to text in or call in, the number is the same for either one, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Lots going on right now. Plenty of folks. So I got texters coming in already. Donna from Hartselle says... Donna from Hartselle says, that sounds like that monologue should be in the next paper, meaning I do get one published every Monday. So, Donna, thank you. I have a vote in right now for Toxic Masculinity Ain't Really Toxic. But thank you, Donna. Appreciate that very much. John from Huntsville has texted in and says, Butters, you're doing a great job. So that's...
Way to go, Butters.
He all he did was push a button, John.
There's lots of buttons.
But I pushed it well.
Says, hey, Butters, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. You'll get an A+. Just don't press the self-destruct button and everything will run smooth as butter. So you see what he did there? Smooth as butter.
Gotcha.
Must
be a dad.
You got those dad jokes flowing. Anyway, all right. Hey, listen, text lines are indeed open. By the way, don't whatever you do, no texting and driving, which I'm already not for that anyway. Texting and driving, though, just took up a whole new realm yesterday. So, I mean, you can still hold a chicken biscuit in your hands. You can still reach back and swat your kids in the back seat. You can still reach over and get your cup of coffee, which is the elixir of life. But don't you hold your hand in your hand. Don't you hold your phone? Not at all. It's bad doings.
Don't do it, guys. I'm telling you. You mean
it's the law.
It is the law.
Citizens arrest. Citizens arrest. I can just see. I mean, this is one going in Barney's book right now. But I look at this and think, how are they gonna shepherd this, and how are they gonna verify it was a phone?
Oh, they can't. That's the thing. It's one of those laws that they really can't.
Well,
they can't do. Yeah.
I prefer to see what Siri comes up with. When
Siri?
When she reads my text to me in my truck anyways. So.
Siri. See, we got two Siri guys in here now.
Oh, see, both of y'all, this is wrong. Y'all talk to your imaginary friend Siri all you want to. She's staying out of my house. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be weird, but we'll wait and see how it plays out. But yeah, the new law just passed yesterday. It goes into effect, I think, January 1. So apparently...
Oh, okay.
Apparently, you can have all the accidents you want between now and January 1. There are no crises right now. You have at least 7-8 months before...
I guess it's for everybody just to get in the habit of not touching their phone.
Yes.
It's just letting them help.
Disclaimer on that on that statement.
Say again?
You need to put a disclaimer on that statement. Right?
I should put a disclaimer. Yeah. We are not in Harmageddon at this point. But I still look at this and go, you got to be careful, man. That whole nanny state thing. I mean, at what point? I'll never forget. So I felt like a bad guy because one of my buddies in the Senate, he was a biking enthusiast, and he loved. I mean, like road biking, and I think he got run off the road at one point or something happened, and so he wanted to he was bringing it, man, and I kept going to the podium going, how are you going to manage the enforcement of a bill that says cars will stay at least 3 feet away from a bicycle? You can't manage that.
No.
Wait, is a state trooper going to be riding along with a tape measure in the car so they can quickly get out? And how are they going to manage this? Well, I think it's very important. I think it's very important that they do this. Well, I get you think it's important, but it's got to be enforceable.
Right.
So anyway, all right, nanny state. There. I have now had my first rant of the day already.
There you go. It's okay.
Thank you very much. I'm going to drink my coffee. Call me when it's time to come back on. Hey, listen, Teresa from Town Creek, by the way, just texted in and says they can check your last phone message when they stop you. They can. But let me ask you this, Teresa from Town Creek, I hear you, but what happens if all you're doing is checking your navigator? How many of us use Waze on our phone?
Oh, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
A good call.
What? Or what if you're like me, you drive a Jeep and you've got the dash mount and it rings and you know it, but what if people can't hear you because you're in a Jeep? So the only way to talk on the phone is to hold it up to your ear and take it off Bluetooth.
Oh, you better pull over. Don't
Just
do
saying.
it.
I'm just saying. Is there music playing?
About to be.
I think there's something on in the background. All right. Hey, listen, we got, there it is. I got to watch it because the pastor doesn't know when to end his sermon if the music doesn't start playing. All right. Hey, y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That would be this one. That'd be Alabama. I'm talking about this show sends its signal way on down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, all for good measure. Hey, listen, I got a surprise call here. So State Senator Sam Gavan serves out of Huntsville area. They just sunny died last night, and there I was just smack talking about the bill that talks about not being able to hold the phone in your hand. Well, he tells me that he was able to get that bill amended towards the end, and so I said, come on the air and tell us. So without further ado, State Senator Sam Gavan, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, lovely. Glad the session is over. Everybody's safe now, right?
That's exactly right. The state is safer.
This bill has come up every year I've been in the legislature. This is the fifth year we've dealt with it. We killed it in the Judiciary Committee in the Senate one year when it did make it out of the House. It hadn't made it out of the House since. And so this year they made a smart ploy. And look, there's some horrible stories out there, horrible stories. And, the story comes out of, we've got to do something, we got to save lives, blah, blah. Well, we can slow everybody down to 35 miles an hour on the interstate. We'll save lives. I mean, there's got to be a balance in all this, right?
Right.
And that's what we're constantly faced with. What's that balance going to be? And so they were really smart this time. The proponents of the bill, they went and got the Rules Chairman, Jabbo Wagner, to carry it.
Oh, yeah.
And so he shows up in front of the Judiciary Committee, and guess who the lone no vote was? Which I'm not used to being the lone no vote, but and I articulated my reasons why I was against it. I was very impractical, and then I was able to meet with him. And of course, as I said several times, I'm the only one that had poor enough judgment on the judiciary to vote against the Rules Chairman. And there were others I knew didn't like it, but they were either afraid to vote publicly against the Rules Chairman or just even against the bill. And so there are a number of things out there that I just said, look, this isn't workable. I didn't want to go have to filibuster with the Rules Chairman. I mean, that's no fun. But I was able to sit down with him and with Senator Barfoot and with Othni Latham at LSA, and we were able to go do some things. Because, I mean, the way the bill was is it started out as if anything you did that was distracted was illegal, and not just, I mean, it was a misdemeanor, not just a citation.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's that? Getting a French fry? Fooling with your radio? Reaching back to slap your kid on the leg? I mean, what all is that? And of course, I laid this all out in committee and a little bit on the floor. And then, I'm got my hand on my phone, and I said, the big thing I cannot live with, I said, I have come much closer to have a wreck fooling with my radio than I have from, talking on the phone. Now, I've missed my turnoff where I wanted to turn because I was, kind of get on autopilot or something and forgetting I needed to go by the grocery store or something. But, there's times like I call my dad. He can't hear me if I'm on Bluetooth. And then there's people that I've just not been able to hear when I'm on Bluetooth. I've got to take them off.
Yeah.
And so it's just not practical. And so what we compromised on is, you still can't text and drive. You can't be dialing a number as you're going down the road. Now, I don't know how the office is going to have to see you do that. But we also, the Democrats had a lot of concerns about this because they think they're going to get pulled over and targeted. And, but basically what we came up with is if you're touching your phone, it's not a problem unless you are swerving or, doing something that the officer can go, well, wait a minute, this is distracted driving. They're stopping unexplainedly, something like that. And then the House, we put some other things in there that I thought made sense. You shouldn't be, doing videos going down the road. You shouldn't be, I don't remember all the different things that are listed there, but there's some specific things listed. And then the House of Representatives said, hey, look, for any of that to come in, you need to be doing something that's objectively distracted, such as swerving, switching lanes without,
It's a secondary offense, basically, right?
Exactly.
Well.
It's a secondary offense. And so I don't know how much it's going to be enforced. It's another tool in the police's forces toolbox, so to speak. But it was just going to keep coming, and this was the most reasonable bill I have seen in 4 years to start with. But and we did. I put in the amendment that said you couldn't. The distracted driving basically had to be a itemized offense. It couldn't just be the officer thought, oh, wait a minute, he's eating French fries, and I don't like the fact that he's an Auburn fan or an Alabama fan or whatever. We're going to pull him over and have some fun with him. It's got to be an itemized offense.
Well, I guess I get it. I mean, I helped pass the original texting while driving law, but I just at some point you're going to look at this too, though, Sam. And don't you think that somebody's going to get pulled over and they go, "But officer, I wasn't holding my phone. That was a chicken biscuit." I mean, what are they going to? I mean, how are they going to prove they actually had the phone in their hand?
I think that at the end of the day, and although they were very quiet about it, eerily quiet, at the end of the day, I think this is something that the trial bar will use when people do have wrecks. And they'll be able to do, forensic investigation, because one of the things in there is that, you can't text and drive, but you can use Siri or whatever else to do a text as you're going down the road.
Yeah.
Well, if they're looking at my phone, how do they know? I mean, maybe they could tell. How do they know if I texted it or if I use Siri?
It's funny you say that. The car I used to have, what I called my common sense car for driving back and forth to Montgomery, was a Ford Fusion, and I could voice text on my Bluetooth, and it would send, and it would say "sent from my Ford Fusion." It would say it on my phone. But I still look at it and go, "This is going to be fun, man. This is one more thing for people to go." But that was not a phone. That was my book, or who knows. But
you brought up before. You brought up on using navigation system.
Yeah,
that was an exception in the bill originally, and I made the statement. I said, "Look, I'm going to put my phone on navigation going down the block, so I can have it in my hand. The officer says something to me, I go up. I'm on navigation. I mean, it wouldn't take people long to figure that out."
Well, and you're a lawyer, so, all right, hey brother, hey, thanks for the last minute call. That's good stuff, man. I appreciate you, and congratulations on being done with the session.
Amen. Take care, bud.
All right, see you. That was State Senator Sam Gavan, surprise call, and glad of it. And so I see what he's saying, and they did mitigate the bill, and I'm glad, because I'm aware the original version of the bill, that would have been something else. And it's kind of funny hearing him talk about going and getting the rules chairman to be the sponsor, and how people didn't want to have to, vote against the rules chairman. That's a cagey way of getting a bill through, but it's true. Well, I mean, listen, okay, I get it, but I think there's still and there's other bills, by the way. We're going to cover down on several of them. And then coming up top of the hour, State Representative Anthony Daniels, who did a great job on a bill that I believe Sam Gavan was helping to carry in the Senate, was the one that gave a tax break for overtime pay. We're going to talk about that with them. I will say this, the text lines got very active, especially when I mentioned Siri. So, for instance, Allie from Athens says, "Colonel, I think you're being inadvertently sexist. Who says that Siri is always in the feminine voice?" Says, "I have the bossy Aussie male version of Siri to keep me in line." That is funny. I've heard, by the way, you can download other voices. Like there used to be one for your navigator, Mr. T's voice. And it would say things like "turn right, fool" and stuff.
That's pretty awesome. I think they also had a Yoda voice once at one point.
Oh, right turn it is.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Okay. All right. What else we got in here? Wade from Huntsville says they cannot check anything on your phone without a search warrant. Thank you, Wade from Huntsville.
Yes.
What are you trying to hide, by the way, Wade? If you need an attorney? Mike from Muscle Shoals says, "Check the Babylon Bee," linked on my Twitter feed. He says, from the story, aliens spoke via telepathy. President Biden, what? Okay, Mike from Muscle Shoals, aliens are speaking. President Biden was present but unable to communicate due to I saw it. Okay, it was a joke. I did see that. Aliens were saying they want to talk to a new leader because the current one, that makes no sense. I saw that. It was Babylon Bee. That's funny. That was good. Donna from Coleman just texted in. This is breaking from WBR6 in news in Birmingham. The FBI is en route to Peru to take Joran Vandersloot into custody. Very toxic male. Okay, Donna, I see that. I think you may have missed the point of my monologue, but Joran Vandersloot is not masculine. He's a thug. So there's that. Tony from Piedmont. Apple has the worst spell check. I know. That's got to be true. Although I'll tell you right now, Android is awful too. I'm a Droid guy.
I think just spell check in general is terrible.
It's not the way I talk. It's got to be the spell check.
That's right. Artificial intelligence will fix all of it.
Oh, thank you. I feel certain that's going to happen.
Here comes Sydney.
I mean, I've told you all about some of the voice text messages that really almost got me in trouble.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like the one where I was talking to a guy about some business options we were examining, and I just texted back while I was walking. I said, "I like the way you think," and I looked down right before I hit send, and it said, "I like your thong," and I was like, "Oh my god, what?" That they would be taking my man card away if I had sent that text. So
They
luckily, I caught
totally
that
would
one.
have.
I'm just saying. Mindy from Birmingham says, "Hi, it's Mindy."
Hey, Mindy.
Okay, Mindy. Good. How are you? Glad you're in the text line. I think she's trying to talk. I think she's texting somebody else and texted us instead. Frank from Huntsville. Ever notice how people are texting and driving, they slow down? So that's why I always have my cruise set. Well, that means it's going to run right up the tailpipe then. If that. So he's saying while he's texting and driving, he's on cruise control. This is getting scarier by the minute.
Oh, boy.
I'm just going to stay home, walk everywhere I go. Wow. Okay. Paul from Huntsville says outlaw Jeeps. I take great offense at that.
We both have a Jeep.
We do. And I've got the noisier one than you do. You got more soundproofing than I do. Yeah. Mine's yes. Okay. And then Wade from Huntsville again says, in today's society, calling someone dumb as a box of rocks is an extremely generous compliment. Okay. He says, I mean, even Domino's Pizza has to have a warning about please do not eat this box. Oh my God! Yeah, I'll tell you what. One thing that does aggravate about my Jeep,
Yeah.
because I do have the dash screen, I forgot what we call it in Jeep, but it's basically your integration with your Bluetooth and your phone and all that.
Yeah.
But when I turn my radio on, it makes me have to touch a little screen button that says I agree to abide by the rules of the road. Pisses me off
Every single time.
every
I'm sure.
single time. Sometimes I'm going to stab a hole right through that screen.
Yeah, I'd like to punch the lawyer that put that in place.
Friggin'
They
lawyers.
just cause problems.
Just a bunch of friggin' lawyers.
This is off subject, but I'm sitting like on a different side of the studio right now.
Yeah.
Man, I can see like everything. And there's this one thing that I keep seeing over and over on repeat right now, and it's on your screen, and it's a double-decker bus race.
You are so random right now.
I just had to see it because I keep watching it. I'm wondering which one's going to win, and it never shows me.
It's the one who's not texting and driving.
That's what it is.
That's it. All right, take us to the break, Butters, before we get Boomer all distracted again. We'll do the break right now. We'll come right back. I will jump in more detail now that I was completely thrown off by State Senator Sam Gavan calling in. But it was basically on topic. I'm in number one of the Triple Dipper, Sine Die. It's the things that happened and didn't happen in the legislative session. Coming up top of the hour, too, a call from State Rep Anthony Daniels. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, where common sense is a superpower. All right, so hey, listen, we're talking about sine die. So for those of y'all that don't know the lingo of the Alabama legislature, there's a lot of nuances, the rules, the procedures, the mannerisms, the way we do things down there in Montgomery. I can just tell you, in 8 years down there, one of the things that I learned more than anything was if you know the rules, you can get a lot done. And if you don't know the rules, you're going to get it run over at every turn. And so knowing the rules, there are times when you may not know all the facts of a bill, but if you know the rules, you can still work it. So it's really, to me, it was always impressed by the fact that there is an order and a means by which things happen. It doesn't mean they always do it right. It also doesn't mean that they always do it well. But what it does mean is that there is a formality to the processes. And I always appreciated that. One of the things that happens, too, is throughout the time you're in the legislative session, they only have one session per year unless the governor calls for what they call a special. Every 4 years, they have what's called an organizational session where they pick new leadership and assign committees. But for the most part, every year, there is one regular session, they call it. And all of the legislators, by the way, don't mistake them as being, full-timers. They're not like congressmen or senators in D.C., in Alabama and in most states, your state legislature, they're part-timers. Although my wife and I jokingly called it my full-time, part-time job. It was pretty hard to practice law and be a senator because you're always on call for your constituents or going to a ribbon cutting or meeting with people about a problem or, heading over to that small town on the far side of your district to meet with the mayor. And that's part of the job. I mean, no complaints. I'm just saying it can be a full-time gig, but technically it's not. Everybody has their own career. I mean, you heard Senator Gavan when he called in a minute ago. He's a lawyer in Huntsville. When I sat down in the Senate every day in the chamber, sitting there I was, a practicing attorney. To my right was a retired teacher. To my left was a retired Marine. Sitting in front of me was a farmer, a dentist, another attorney, a guy that owns a restaurant sat to my left. I mean, it's all folks like me and you who chose to run for office. And then one of the things that happens is at the end of every legislative session, the final adjournment is the one where usually it's the leadership will say, I hereby make a motion that we adjourn sine die. Sine die is the fancy word they tack on to the adjournment that means basically in Latin something like it is complete or the end has come or something like that. So they have adjourned sine die as of last night. The legislative session is over. There's a couple things that happened and some that didn't. And one of the things that surprised people was that a bill that would have made it illegal to do ballot harvesting did not make it onto the Senate calendar for the last day. Already passed the House. I think it was carried by, I'm pretty sure this one was Representative, was it Jimmy Keel, I think? Anyway, the bottom line is this particular bill was believed to be one that was very conservative in nature. Here we are talking about election integrity. It's a crime. It would have made it a crime to help people cast absentee ballots in terms of, doing way too much, like gathering up. Like what's really aggravating is you watch videos of people in Georgia, and Pennsylvania, and California, and they would go to apartment complexes carrying stacks of blank absentee ballots, get folks to fill them out, oftentimes telling them how to fill it out, load them up, and then carry a stack of 50 to 100 back to the ballot collection area. That's called ballot harvesting. Now, that's different than helping your elderly aunt get hers done because she's not mobile and can't get to the polling site. That's different than someone who's blind, needing someone to tell them how to fill it out because they're going to be gone and they can't make it to the polling site. Well, the Senate took no action yesterday, so that bill died, which was also, by the way, surprising because it was it was being touted and pushed by our new Secretary of State, Wes Allen. So anyway, for whatever reason, that bill didn't go through. Another bill that I thought was a little interesting because it was being carried by one of the leaders in the Senate, State Senator Arthur Orr from Decatur. He had a bill to put more teeth in Alabama's public records law. The press is all over this idea. We want FOIA requests. We want them quick. We want them, sometimes they're cumbersome, I get it, but other times it's just the department dragging its feet on getting the information that you've requested. Well, government is supposed to be transparent. Government is supposed to be amenable to the people and accountable to the people. And so FOIA requests, there are some studies that say that Alabama has one of the worst records for answering FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests of any state in the nation. So this bill by Senator Orr had already passed the Senate. He's a budget chairman. He's one of the leadership of the Senate. Didn't quite get there. Didn't even make it to the floor in the House on the last day. So that was interesting. But they did have time, by the way, though, to pass a bill that says food trucks can serve alcohol. I mean, let's don't deal with election integrity, but by golly, if you want to buy a beer from your food truck, as long as you're within one of the entertainment districts they have, then that's okay. I mean, it's what they did, and I on the one hand, I kind of get it, but what they did was they just avoided controversy. They wanted to get in there and get some stuff done. A lot of folks were tired, and they were ready to be done, head to the House. But I'm telling you, they missed the ball on a few things, not the least of which is the bill we talked about at great length over the last few days, House Bill 298, to keep porn out of the hands of kids on cell phones by just turning on a filter. That didn't even make it to the floor for a vote. All right, we got plenty more where that came from. Coming up next, we should be having a call with State Representative Anthony Daniels, and we'll talk to him about his bill that actually got an upgrade at the last minute. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Right Side Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Right Side Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Right Side studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. We covered all of it, like the dude just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, well, we already had a surprise call from State Senator Sam Gavan. Now we got a scheduled call from State Representative Anthony Daniels. Representative Daniels is representing the House District 53 up there in the Huntsville area. He is currently the minority leader in the Alabama House of Representatives and just scored a major coup yesterday on a bill that is one of my favorite bills of the year, House Bill 217. So I'll let him talk about it more when he come on right now. State Representative Anthony Daniels, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, Senator. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for making some time for us. Listen, you've been on the show once before. Got a lot of high praise, by the way, from my listeners who wanted to know why you sounded more conservative than most of the Republicans in Montgomery. But you got a bill, House Bill 217, and I think this was your idea, wasn't it, to take the state taxation off of overtime pay, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times when we are pushing policy, oftentimes we're being handed policy from some organization or some group that have done a tremendous amount of research. But for me, it's just conversations with people that led to this policy.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, that also makes it kind of like have street sense, too, at that same time.
Oh, absolutely. I think, thankful to folks like you and others that are out there that are talking about this piece of legislation the moment you heard about it and really educating the public on it. And the public has started putting pressure on their House and Senate members about supporting this legislation. So it really, it was Main Street that made this happen. And so I certainly appreciate that.
Well, absolutely. And we appreciate you carrying the bill. So the bottom line is this is the legislation that says, hey, if you're willing to put in overtime, if your business needs you to, keep things moving, keep the machinery going, whatever the case may be, and you work over 40 hours in a week, then you're getting time and a half or whatever overtime is, but you're not having to pay state income tax on that, which is like a savings of about 5%. Am I right?
Absolutely. It's a common sense piece of legislation, as you mentioned, but, at the end of the day, we're rewarding hard work. And right now, a lot of our industries and companies across the state of Alabama have, now hiring signs out front, can't find the experienced workforce, or they can't find anyone to work in some of these areas. And so by incentivizing their current workforce that are trained, that they don't have to retrain, that know the job and know the machinery, you being able to utilize those individuals to work additional hours so that they could be at or ahead of their production schedule makes sense. But the incentive of the state of Alabama basically giving a 5% pay raise to those individuals that are willing to work overtime, it becomes a public-private partnership in general. And so I certainly appreciate the legislation, appreciate my colleague, Senator Sam Gavan, for carrying the ball in the Senate. And so it was truly a team effort from leadership in the House and the Senate. And we're just really excited about this and what it'll do for the people of Alabama.
Hey, and I agree. And am I right that we're the only state in the nation that has done this form of tax cut?
Absolutely, the first of its kind. And so, oftentimes when you have an idea out there, folks are scratching their heads saying, "Oh, so where are they doing? Or how are they doing this in other states? Let's see what they're doing." But instead, this year we decided to lead the nation in something that's going to help from a workforce standpoint. We see the gridlock that exists in at the federal level in Congress, and so we just want to be able to provide some light at the end of the tunnel for workers in Alabama.
Well, that's very cool. Now, so this thing went through the whole process, and it got changed. It got amended a bit, and at some point, the legislature actually passed it, but they passed it with a limitation. It was going to be like no more than $25 million a year could go towards this kind of a tax cut. We call it a cap. So originally, to get it passed, the Senate amended it. I think Senator Orr actually amended it in the Senate as the budget chairman and sort of capped the capability of this. Am I correct in saying it that way?
Yeah, in the committee, Senator Orr offered an amendment to cap it at $2,000 per employee, and we just felt that a cap by employee wasn't really the right approach, because that our intent was to make certain that we're able to reward hard work and put no limitations on it. And so we negotiated at $25 million. And $25 million is basically approximately $1 billion in overall overtime paid to even reach the $25 million. And so the governor's office, I've been in communication with the administration about what this means and how we want to make certain that we're working with industry to make certain that the implementation of this is seamless. And so, in looking at the cap, it would have made it kind of difficult to manage. And so we decided that, hey, let's go ahead and remove the cap.
Well, and by the way, that was something that caught me off guard, and I bet it caught a lot of the legislature off guard. So the way this worked is the legislature passed the bill, sent it across the street for the governor to sign, and she had the option. She could have signed it, she could have vetoed it, or she could have gone number 3, which is to amend it and send it back asking for corrections or for amendments. And her choice on her side was to waive the cap altogether. And that was, I'll be honest with you, man, that was kind of a coup. Did you know that was coming? Come on now. Did you know she was going to send it back? Did you already have that planned out? Come on.
I would tell you that there are a lot of conversations starting at Friday after I think the legislation passed on a Thursday, and on Friday we were in conversations. Really slightly before it was sent off, there were some conversations taking place behind the scenes, and we were able to get to a point to where we got everybody comfortable with removing the cap because of the benefits. And I think that because the people were pushing and talking to their representatives and senators, it made perfect sense. And so we appreciate Senator Orr for his willingness to work with us, and really all of us understanding the intent of the legislation, and that we feel that it'll increase the participation rate and do other things. And so, sometimes, Phil, and you and others taught me this, sometimes it may not end up the way you want to in the beginning, but at the end of the day, you have to already have thought it through the next 5 steps in order to get to the finish line, and that's what we did.
And you called it. We were talking earlier. You called it playing 3D chess, I think.
Absolutely, that's 3D chess.
Well, so what I'm hearing is you made a smoky backroom deal with the governor. That's what I just heard.
Well, no, it didn't exactly happen that way.
Well, no.
I would say there's mutual agreements among all people. I would tell you, the bill started out with no cap, so no one had to worry about it.
Yeah.
But when things start shifting around, you have to figure out the implementation. Oftentimes, when we pass legislation, we very rarely think through, okay, how is this going to be implemented? Are we creating even more barriers for business and others to be able to implement this? And if so, how do we correct it? And so that's kind of where that's why we didn't have a cap on in the beginning, is because it made it easier for businesses to not tax send those taxes to the state, that 5% to the state, but put it in the checks of those employees.
Yeah,
and so it all worked out.
I think it did, and I applaud you on this. I think one thing that I did see that I don't have concerns over, but I know we got more work to do in the future, is the bill does have a sunset, right? This is like about a year and a half of time for it to run to see how it does, and if it continues on, the legislature is going to have to renew it. Am I correct?
Yeah, Phil. 1 year out from the primary, they will have to renew it.
1 year from the. Okay. See, that's also politics. That's good stuff. Well, listen, State Representative Anthony Daniels, Minority Leader in the Alabama State House. This is one of the best bills of the year, in my opinion, and I really appreciate the work you did, the creativity on it, and I certainly appreciate the fact that it was bipartisan, and we appreciate you making time for us today, man.
Well, thank you, Phil. And I will say to the listeners out there, call every House member and senator and thank them because, the Speaker and the pro tem, majority leaders, budget chairmen all had a role in this. And Senator Gavan carried in the Senate. And so all of these men and women that's in the part of the legislature, legislative body should be applauded, and the governor should be applauded for her willingness to remove that cap.
All right. Good enough, man. Well, listen, you have a great day. Enjoy the fact that the session is over, and we'll get you back on sometime soon.
All right. Thank you, man. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you. That's. Listen, I'm going to tell you, there are times when I gripe about government, and I can do it because I've been in it. I mean, I may not always know what the executive branch is up to or the legislative branch, the judicial branch, but I've walked the halls of the State House for 8 years. And I can just tell you that what you saw in that piece of legislation was a classic example of how it's supposed to go. It was a good idea that wound up having bipartisan support that was being looked at sideways by some people for a while. They weren't sure it was going to pass, and then it got legs, man. It got legs. And not only did it get legs, but somebody tried to amend it. Well, that's part of the process. It went through committee, and it got amended. And then the governor, the executive branch, said, you know what? I want more. And the governor amended it, sent it back, and the concurrence came from the House and Senate without any trouble at all. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the way, that's like a model right there. You could teach a class on civics out of that one piece of legislation. Not only that, but it's a tax break. So how do we argue with that? All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We're going to head to a break right now. We'll come right back, and we'll keep on going with Sine Die. There's a couple more things you might want to know about the most recent legislative session, things that did and things that didn't happen, and what might be coming next year. All right, you guys stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams. Phil Williams. Butters. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Oh, Butters. We're doing so good there, man. No, it really is kind of cool having somebody else that knows the system. So you're doing a great job, buddy. Hey, I gotta go over. So by the way, we had the text lines blew up, and I haven't caught up with them yet, but I do have to read this one. So brand new texter. We were talking earlier about Siri and about voice texting and all that kind of stuff. So so you were, and I was talking about the voice texting.
Oh, right.
And
we were talking about Siri, and then
Well, Lisa from Huntsville's our new texter.
All right.
And she's got a great story. So Lisa from Huntsville says, back when Siri was new, it did not like my South Alabama accent. I attempted to text my husband, "Did you feed the dog?" His response was, "Well, I tried to tell her about Jesus, but I don't think she understood." So I was very confused in the response, and then I looked at the message and realized Siri had interpreted it as, "Did you save the dog?" So it all made sense when I saw what Siri actually sent. By the way, I no longer hit send without proofreading my messages.
That may be something you want to do on another show, or at the end of a show one day. Say what was the weirdest or crazy. Well, I don't know if you want to do that or not. But
no, actually, I don't think I want to do that.
Maybe we don't.
We may have to use the red dump button over there if that happens. So anyway, all right. Hey, Lisa from Huntsville, glad you're in the text lines. Thank you very much. Hey, so listen, there's so many things that didn't happen. Two things about the legislative session. One is there are things that didn't happen. And what I always hated was when a good bill was needed, and everybody would say, "Well, it's a good bill. It's a good bill. A little controversial, but it's a good bill. If we don't get to it this year, we'll get to it next year." Daggum. If it's a good bill now, it's just a good bill now, right? I get it. I've seen some great legislation take several years to pass. One of the ones that was very frustrating to me that did not pass this time around, even though it passed out of the House, it did not make it out of or onto the Senate calendar for the last day, was a simple bill, in my opinion, House Bill 298. It's the one we had on the show Friday. I talked about it briefly in my monologue on Monday. But House Bill 298, all it did was say, hey, every phone is already made with a porn filter, every one of them. They already have it. It's part of the industry standard. And all it said was, in Alabama, when you buy a new smartphone or a tablet, that when the phone is activated, that the filter will also be activated. If somebody wants to watch porn, they can unfilter it. But that way, all it does is it keeps kids from accidentally playing with mom or dad's phone and seeing things they shouldn't see. Not that mom or dad were looking at it, but that the filter's not turned on. Let me tell you a simple story on that. When my daughter was in, I want to say 6th or 7th grade, she had to do a story on politics. And she went to what she believed was going to wind up being a White House website, and it was not. And it's not always that kids are searching this stuff out. It's that they can stumble onto it without knowing it's there. And all this bill would have done is say, hey, you know what? All we're going to do is make that a little harder. And if somebody wants to watch porn, then the parental guards can be taken off. But we're going to activate them on day one just to keep that in place. And that bill didn't even come to the floor for a vote. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed in the Senate leadership for deciding that was just too controversial. Because the statements we got from, my friend Greg Reed, who's the pro tem of the Senate, his comments were on not just that, but in general. Some bills didn't come primarily because there were questions, there were conflicts, there were issues, maybe unintended consequences that had been discussed, blah, blah, blah. What that basically said was, we just didn't want to rock the boat. We all wanted to go home. So that being said, they passed easy stuff like making sure that you can get a beer from your food truck. One thing that didn't happen this session, but is apparently, and I knew it would, you could smell it a mile away, what's going to wind up happening starting next year? Guarantee you, the gambling bill's coming back. Now, I don't care how you feel about casinos. Let me tell you how that gambling bill was styled last time. It was so bad. It was one of the worst pieces of legislation I've ever seen carried by a Republican. It was a bill that said, hey, let's take all those folks who've actually been breaking Alabama law, like Green Track, that is allegedly like millions of dollars behind on paying state taxes. and let's give them a monopoly. We were going to take the names of industries, casino owners who have been breaking the law in the past and give them a spot in our state constitution. Their actual name would be embedded in the Constitution to give them a monopoly, saying that, yeah, and we'll have a casino, and guess what? They're the only ones that get to have it. There's no business in the world embedded in a state constitution like that. But we were going to do it. I say we were. Republicans were thinking about it. And that bill was making its way through the legislative process. I don't know what they're bringing back next time, but right now what I have is a story from Yellowhammer, State Senator Greg Albritton, who I love Greg Albritton. He's a budget chair. He's also, by the way, the Porch Creek Indians are his constituents. And he's looking at bringing back gambling next year. Speaker of the House, Nathaniel Ledbetter, says he believes that we got to deal with gambling maybe next year. All right, that's coming. All right, listen, we're going to switch gears when we get back. Going to talk about number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Haters gonna hate. Yeah, wait till you hear this one. We'll be right back. Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That would be this one. That would be Alabama. I'm talking about this show sends its signal way on down south of Birmingham and way up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, all the way back over to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, even Mississippi. Thrown in just for good measure. Hey, listen, by the way, I will say this. You hear this show every day, and when we go to break, you hear the ads. And just please understand, Right Side Radio, we are a separate business. We are a standalone entity. We are not owned by the stations that we're on. And the way that we survive as a business like any other business is by developing the kind of revenue it takes to run a business. And one of the ways we do that is by selling advertising. If you want to advertise on this show, if you hear us talking, you're like, man, that's where I want to be. I identify with those guys. They speak my language. They sound just like me. Well, listen, that's too easy to fix. We would love to have you on the advertising team. And the way to do that is not to call the station, is to contact us directly. So go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. All our stuff's on there to include an advertising tab. You click on it, give us a call. We will send us a message. We will get in touch with you right away. And we would love to have you on the team. So yeah, you want to advertise on Right Side Radio, rightsideradio.org. We'll hook you up. All right, I'm at number 2 of the Triple Dipper. Haters Gonna Hate. There's an organization based in Alabama that is the purveyor of hate. It basically finds hate under every rock. And it used to be an organization that did good back in the day. It's a Southern Poverty Law Center based out of Montgomery. If you haven't heard of it, let me tell you what, everybody in government has heard of it. Why? Because they're now the go-to. They are the ones. If they say you're a hate group, then the FBI is going to believe it. I mean, I've got stories in my stack right here of the FBI relying upon the SPLC's list of designated hate groups to determine who to, focus their attention on, to include Catholics. And I mean, the whole thing is kind of nutty when you get down to it. This is a highly liberal, biased organization. So you might imagine that, I don't know, liberal groups or radicals, they don't wind up getting branded as hate groups. How does that work out? Well, you may recall this a few years back. The Family Research Council, which is a national Christian conservative organization that advocates for strong families, it's pro-life, all of that, they were listed by the SPLC as a hate group. And so what happened? A left-wing nut job, relying upon their list, went to the FRC headquarters and shot up the lobby. And we're lucky that it didn't get more tragic than it was. But how about this? Story from the New York Post, dated March 6th of this year, so just a couple months ago. It points out that the Southern Poverty Law Center decided it would not list Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Why? Pray tell why? Well, because, the threat of lethal violence from Antifa pales in comparison to that posed by far-right extremists. These are not serious people. The organization that does not view Antifa as a domestic terrorist is an organization that has really kind of lost its way. And yet that's what they stand for. The Family Research Council is a hate group. But Antifa, well, no. They're an organization that, has broad community-based support. Really? Well, you may want to know that as of just yesterday, the SPLC has come out with its brand spanking new hate list for the year. They even designate what they call a hate map. You can go take a look at the map and you can see all the dots on it. Where are these groups based? Who are they? What do they do? It's interactive. You can click on it. You can find their names. Kind of interesting when you look at the fact that the hate map hadn't come out this year. Why would that be? Well, it didn't come out till late in the year. Is something going on? Maybe they've changed their way. Well, they've gone through their own internal scandals. It turns out that allegations of racism and sexual harassment inside the staffing of SPLC kind of rocked their world in the last year. Maybe they got off to a slow start. But their list came out yesterday. National Review says, we were wondering where that list was. Picked it up here on Fox News. Story came out last night. The new hate group has parental groups that are concerned about education listed as hate and extremist groups. Kid you not. New report from the Southern Poverty Law Center, according to Fox News, lists some parents' rights organizations as hate and anti-government groups on the same list as neo-Nazis and the KKK. These are not serious people. The SPLC appeared to change their infamous hate map to now be a map of hate and anti-government groups. Okay. They went from having 733 hate groups in 2021 to now they have 1,225 hate and anti-government extremist groups in their in their report of the year 2022. Many of which, by the way, are focused on education. One of those is a group called Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty. That's a scary sounding group. Moms for Liberty, a Florida-based group with connections to the GOP. Oh, I don't know. They might be MAGA people. All I know is this. Moms for Liberty has been doing a great job of rallying parents and getting them to go to school board meetings and speak out when they're, I don't know, things like, drag queen story hour in school libraries and pornographic books in school libraries and looking at why CRT is being taught in the schools. And the growth of groups like Moms for Liberty, it says here in the article, mirrored the similar rallying cries of people who were opposed to integration back in the day, says the SPLC. So they threw down the race card. Well, now it all makes sense. So all you moms out there who were thinking that you were on the right track going to speak to the school board about your concerns about your child's education, you didn't know you were racist. That's what we're looking at right now. Well, this almost sounds benign, like who's going to take this serious, right? Except that the FBI takes this serious. The FBI references the hate group list from the SPLC as a regular course of business. I'm not kidding. Here's one story from the Daily Caller. It came out yesterday. In this case, a former FBI agent by the name of Frank Figliuzzi. Frank Figliuzzi was on MSNBC. Well, there's a problem number one. Former FBI agent stressed the need for new laws to target conservatives critical of gender ideology during a Tuesday MSNBC appearance, citing a Southern Poverty Law Center report. Really? Former FBI agent Frank Figliuzzi argued for the need for comprehensive laws regarding domestic terrorism to address such matters, saying that, quote, far-right extremists have characterized domestic terror laws as attempts by the government to police our thoughts when the government's really just trying to prevent violence. It's all, we just want to keep the order. That's all it is. Well, is that why, a SWAT team shows up at the door of a pro-life protester who all he did was pray on the sidewalk? That's what we're talking about here. Is that why parents who spoke out at Virginia school board meetings were suddenly on the FBI's watch list? Really? Is that why Catholics were considered in an internal memorandum that was discovered through a Freedom of Information Act to be branded as potential radical terrorists, especially if they go to the more conservative versions of Mass? Wow. Figliuzzi went on in this interview to say, let me give kudos to the SPLC for an extremely comprehensive, well-written, and well-packaged report. So I recommend everyone reading this that wants to become more familiar with what's happening around us all right now, because the overall takeaway is that hate is becoming more entrenched. Hate has gone local, and the more local it goes, the more mainstream it becomes. What a load of crap. I mean, first of all, let me take this and go with it. If they're really concerned about hate and violence and extremism, maybe they should look inside their own ranks. I don't know if you remember this or not, but in March of this year, National Review, SPLC lawyer was among the dozens who were arrested for attacking cops at the new Atlanta training facility. What? Yes. Southern Poverty Law Center staff attorney Thomas Jurgens was among the dozens of rioters who was arrested following a violent attack on police at the proposed site of the new Atlanta Police Foundation's training facility a few miles south of the city. The organization confirmed that Jurgens was arrested on Monday, casting blame on local law enforcement. So the SPLC's version of the events is not to say, you know what, he is no longer working for us. This is an internal matter. We'll review it. They didn't say anything like that. They turned it back on the police. Here's their quote. This is part of a months-long escalation of policing tactics against protesters and observers who oppose the destruction of the forest to build a training facility. Really? That's where they went. They were supporting the eco-terrorist groups who are attacking police because the police are building a new training facility to help them learn better how to police the streets of Atlanta. And the SPLC has a lawyer who was arrested in the violent protest, and their response to the entire thing is, seems to me the police are coming down rather heavy-handed. Really? Well, listen, I'm going to tell you, the SPLC, it's amazing how far they've gone. It's amazing how far down they have gone since the time of their inception. And if you go online right now, you'll find things like, here's one from CBN, Christian Broadcasting News. SPLC hate map under fire. This is last month, 2 weeks ago. SPLC hate map under fire after the FBI used it. Catholic journalists warn of a plan now to silence people. Wow. And this is the one I was talking about. They got to watch out for what the memorandum called radical traditionalist Catholics and white nationalists. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, it's at every turn, the SPLC hate map becomes less and less reliable, and yet the FBI relies upon it to tell them who to focus their attention on. Meantime, there's actually a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit right now. A lawsuit right now against the SPLC by an organization that has been able to get past the usual dispositive motions at the beginning of a case. And he's in discovery right now. It's a guy named D.A. King who has an organization called the Dustin Inman Society over in Atlanta area, and their specialty is pushing back against illegal immigration. And they were branded a hate group by the SPLC after the SPLC had said in print just a couple of years prior that they were not a hate group. And oh, by the way, it happened right after the SPLC had hired a lobbyist with the millions and millions and millions of dollars they have in reserve, and hired a lobbyist to help work against a bill that this guy, D.A. King, was working on. And the internal whistleblower report that accompanies this is pretty amazing. As a guy who's a former employee of the SPLC said, really at the SPLC, we called it making hate pay. It was hard for many of us not to feel like we'd become pawns in what was in many respects a highly profitable scam. SPLC, by the way, I have read up, has got more money in offshore accounts than, I don't know, name a billionaire. But I'm just telling you, they've got huge tranches of money setting aside, giving them the resources they need to buy the media and to put out hate group lists that have no bearing on reality. And the latest is, as of yesterday, Moms for Liberty, Fighting for Education, is now a hate group by the SPLC. They better go ahead and lawyer up, because I'm telling you, more suits are coming. All right, we'll take a break right now. We'll come right back. Coming up top of the hour, we switch to the Grand Council with my brethren, Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. Y'all stay tuned for that. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, where common sense is a superpower. So, hey, listen, text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's also a call-in line. So if you want to call in or text in on something we've been talking about, I got a great text a minute ago from Sean from Owens Crossroads. He says, when I was an anti-terrorism officer, so I'm assuming, Sean, that you were with the FBI. He says, when I was an anti-terrorism officer, we used the SPLC to help identify groups in our local area. The Joint Terrorism Task Force would use them as a reference back then. He said, the hate map is aptly named because they're demonstrating hate towards our country. And I asked him to clarify who he was talking about. He said the SPLC is hating our country. So they named their map after their belief system. He says, I'm being flippant. But he said, basically that's the deal. Well, that's interesting. And that's also confirmation. I'm telling you, the SPLC has somehow wormed their way into the brains of people that matter. And when you start seeing things like the FBI relies upon the SPLC to give them the list of, who's a hate group, and then they won't put Antifa on, but they will put on a group of moms who want to go speak to school boards. What's that tell you? A little bias, maybe? Not much. What else have I got in the text line over here? Casey, we call her Junebug from Hartselle. She says, honestly, I should not complain because I'm not willing to surrender my time to run a campaign to serve in office. However, it's disheartening to realize that some of the members of Congress we've come to trust as staunch conservatives are caving on critical issues. Prayers and wisdom encourage are in order for our elected officials. Yes, ma'am. You are correct. And by the way, when you say members of Congress, we're talking about the state legislature earlier, but all that to say, I totally agree with you, Casey. It's called standing on. And my monologue yesterday was about why it's important that they stand on principle. Brandy from Owens Crossroads. Brandy says, so very disappointed about House Bill 298. I could never figure out why that's not a thing that's already on, rather than must be turned on to protect our kids. Talking about that filter on your phones. Sean from Owens Crossroads texted back in and clarified he was an Air Force anti-terrorism officer. Wow, so our military is using it. Hey, thanks, Sean. Appreciate your service. John from Huntsville says, Phil, there's a lot of haters out there, but who in their right mind could ever hate Rightside Radio? Thank you, John. Appreciate you, man, as always. What else we got here? Scrolling on down the line, JT from Lacey Springs says, a blue politician creating and promoting red ideas and values. Miracles do exist. Indeed. Indeed they do, my friend. Have I got a caller on the line? I do. Is that Sparky? Sparky from Harvest. How you doing, Spark?
Hey, Bill. Good to hear your show today.
Thanks, man.
On the topic of the Southern Poverty Law Center, aided by the news media and this far left socialist government, decreeing who is a hate group and condemning moms and parents for being concerned about what kind of nonsense and vulgarities are being shoved in front of their kids. I mean, this is just turning into a totalitarian state between the news media and the government's inclinations. Look at you were talking about yesterday the ESG. You've got a government now telling everybody, clarifying for you that which is virtuous, right?
Yeah.
Believing and thinking a certain way under the banner of ESG, and then making it mandatory and taxing the crap out of you if you don't toe the line on what this government says is virtuous. Never mind everything you believe in your heart of hearts as a tax-paying, wage-earning American. Virtuous is vilified. It's insane, and it's absolutely the slippery slope to a totalitarian dictatorship.
No, you're spot on, man. And it's hard to fathom that members of our government, and we got about 30 seconds here left, so I apologize, I'm not having much time, Spark, but it's amazing to me that we have this level of liberal vitriol from an organization that is funded on promoting hate being relied upon to help people understand what hate is. That to me is just a recipe for disaster. And it'd almost be a comedy, but it's more like a Greek tragedy. But hey, Sparky, we got to run, brother. Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, see ya. So he's absolutely right. It's bordering on a totalitarian state when they can decide for you what is virtuous. What a great way of phrasing it. When they can tell you what's virtuous, it's like whole different world. The government gets to pick the winners and the losers at that point. All right, listen, we're taking a break. We're coming right back. We be on with the Grand Council, Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and me. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got local, state, national, sometimes the international, and like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, well, it is Wednesday, 4 o'clock p.m. That means it's time for one of my favorite segments of every single week. We do a thing called the Grand Council, where I bring in two of my brethren who have been doing this longer than I have. And so let me just take a second and call the roll. From 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN up in Huntsville, and writing for Yellow Hammer News, Dale Jackson, are you here?
Oh.
All right, stand at ease. And then stepping over to the other side here, we got from FM Talk 106.5, the host of the Jeff Poor Show in the mornings, and also, by the way, the executive editor for 1819 News. Jeff Poor, are you here?
I am present.
You are indeed. Thank you, sir. All right, well, I pronounce a quorum. So that means, hey, Butters, hit it.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Ta-da! All right. Hey, by the way, fellas, in case y'all didn't catch that, we got a rookie on the board right now. The sous chef for the studio is Butters, and he is running the board right now. So far, it's all working. All right, you know the rules. We got questions. We ask each other. We go back and forth. We ping them, and we see what we agree on and don't agree on. And I'm going to take the first one this time. So I had Anthony Daniels, State Representative Anthony Daniels from Huntsville, on the show a little while ago. He had, as a Democrat, he had the bill that cut taxes on overtime pay. Not only did he get it passed, he got it passed bipartisan, and then he got the governor to make it bigger at the last minute and send it back with a governor's amendment, which is about as rare as hen's teeth. Is Anthony Daniels going to switch parties and be a Republican and take over as Speaker of the House? And, oh, by the way, is he the player of the year? Jeff?
I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think it's between he and the Lieutenant Governor, Will Ainsworth, who are not exactly what I would call power players. Sure, they're in the mix, but they're not making the calls. Is he going to switch Republican Party? No way. I don't think so. But I do think he is this is a breakout year, if you will, for Leader Daniels.
I would agree with that. Dale, what do you think?
He definitely either led the parade or jumped out in front of the parade, one or the other. He was right in the middle of all these things that he worked on. I think that he will not ever switch parties because he's leadership already and he's very young. Especially politically wise, no offense, Senator Williams. But I think that we also know that he's not the MVP. The MVP is Alabama's political media outside, and I'm talking about the traditional media, let's just put it that way. They suck so bad at their actual jobs, but they're very good at pushing their agenda. That ballot harvesting is criminalizing people who are going to take their grandmother's ballot to the box. That banning kids from playing soccer on another gender team will make them kill themselves, and all these other ridiculous things that they do. They scared Republicans. They scared them.
I don't think the media had nothing to do with it.
Please.
The media were not the reason the Republicans were scared. It was the Democrats across the aisle. The media are they're not even a player here, man.
They're an asset.
I'll be honest with you. I think that some portions of the media raked that bill over the coals in a way that never should have been done. But I tell you what was really there, and I agree with Jeff more on this one. How did we get on a second question, by the way? But I think that the reality is that truthfully, the Republicans were just scared of rocking the boat, and they all wanted to go home. And it was easier to deal with Democrats on the friendly bills like getting a beer at a food truck than it was to pass ballot harvesting, which is what they said they stood for, which is election integrity. So anyway, all right. How about that? So somewhere in there, I bragged on Democrats and I scolded Republicans. Man, what a question. Jeff, you're next. What you got?
Well, then I kind of segue here because look at what were the Republicans scared of? They were scared of the two Democrats in the Senate in particular tying things up, who are just using the rules to their advantage, arguably abusing the rules, with Bobby Singleton and Roger Smitherman, and a lot of Republicans just did not want to deal with that headache and have to cloture them on every single thing. So that being said, is it time to change the rules in the Senate to better reflect what the people in the state want?
I'll jump on that. No, I don't think it's time to change the rules. I think it's time just to go ahead and own up to the fact that there's going to be uncomfortable days. I mean, the very first couple of legislative sessions when we took the majority back in 2010, I was asking Jimmy Holley, who was a longtime senator from South Alabama down the Wiregrass area. I said, Jimmy, how many all-nighters did you pull in your 25 years down here? And he said 4, and 3 of them were in this session. And that was because we were just committed to stay there until we got it done. It didn't happen all the time that way. But what I'm saying is a filibuster, you're only allowed to get 2 hours per person. So unless they've got a line of people there waiting to take their turn at the microphone, the worst that's going to happen is Bobby Singleton's going to get up there and rail about the evils of racism for, 2 hours, and then you vote the bill. But you can cloture them because you got a supermajority. So just do it. Dale.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to do it, they absolutely could. I mean, that's the thing. This isn't for a lack of knowledge or it's lack of desire. I mean, I agree with that part of it from the earlier question, but I also believe that the press is effective, and they hear more from activists on the left, and that includes members of the press. It's just more about that than anything else. And these guys are they're very averse to negative attention, which I don't even seem to understand. Don't these guys support Donald Trump, who basically made all of his hay off of negative attention? Go for it. Burn it down, baby.
But if they were adverse to negative attention, they would be terrified of us. And they're not. They're terrified of the business community. Maybe they're a little terrified of the national media.
They're terrified of traditional media.
Well, they're not terrified of the Montgomery Advertiser Ale.com. They're just not. I don't know what you would be referring to then. But I'll say this. It is time to steamroll those guys on the Democratic side. I am tired of this. Every day you go in that chamber and you sit there and you watch Roger Smitherman talk for 2 hours. I mean, that is not – I don't know what the rules should be. And they'll say, well, wait till the Democrats are back in charge. The Democrats are never going to be back in charge, at least not in our lifetime. It's time to steamroll those guys, put those guys in their place, make them behave, and run that chamber like a Republican supermajority.
Well, that's exactly right. And the truth of the matter is the Democrats are not going to get back in the majority, like you said. And so we didn't come in with an agenda. And I've said this on the show before, too. We did not come in with a true agenda, like a plan of the bills that we wanted to accomplish. And so when that happens, all you're going to do is try to keep the trains running on time and try to get everybody to work together. Well, you can get bipartisanship. Anthony Daniels proved that. But you can't always get it. And so when you can't get it, screw it. Go ahead and drop the cloture petition and vote the thing into a place where you can vote and get it done because you're supposed to be the ones in charge.
Let me just say this, and I know I'm abusing my time here, but I don't think they want us. I don't think they want an agenda because the agenda they would have would be something a lot of us would probably find a little odious.
I don't disagree with that. Next question before we run out of time here, Dale.
Senator Albritton says it's time to talk about gambling.
Whoop, whoop.
The day after the legislative session ends. Great timing. Great timing. Is it time to talk about gambling, guys?
Look, here's the deal. If they want to talk about gambling, they need to talk about how they want to do it. Because the last time they brought up a bill, I said earlier on the show today, I don't care how you feel about casinos. Set that aside for a minute. That last bill they had was a monopoly bill. It was a taxation bill. It was a big government bill. It was everything Republicans say they don't stand for. And, oh, by the way, it was also gambling. So what are they going to bring? If they're going to bring that kind of a, complete distortion of who they say they are as a party, then no, it's not time. And then, by the way, I also hate the excuse, well, gambling's already here, so we just need to make sure we get some taxation off of it. Well, so's prostitution. Are you going to say that about that too? Jeff?
Well, I don't. I don't think gambling is. It's a lot harder than it seems, and I guess it's time to talk about it. But I think what held them up this year, guys, was Ledbetter knew we had a bunch of new members, and he said that they're going to take that off the table for this year. So yeah, it's the next session. I guess theoretically, it is time to talk about gambling. I don't know what it's going to be though.
Yeah, and but also, by the way, I will say this: I applaud Ledbetter for doing that, because the last thing we needed was something as contentious and as legacy difficult to deal with a third of the House being new. That would have been, I mean, that would have been like, I don't know, trying to run a gas tax bill through with all the new senators. Oh wait, they did that. But anyway, I appreciate Ledbetter doing that. All right, that's first round. All right, Butters, we're going to a break right now. Listen, that's round one of the Grand Council. We'll come right back with Jeff Poore from FM Talk 106.5 and 1819 News, Dale Jackson from WVNN and Yellowhammer News, and just little old me, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams. We'll be right back. So with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. First question out the gate is mine, fellers. So I was going to ask whether or not Dale Jackson was going to get into the GOP primary for president with everybody else, but I'll modify my question. I'll modify my question. So somebody named Dadgum or something from North Dakota has gotten in. Chris Christie got in. Mike Pence is getting in today. Are we staring at a runoff, or can Trump come out with a primary that is at 50+%? Jeff,
I think the way it'll work is I think Iowa and New Hampshire, what you want to watch. Even if Trump's at 50%, those early states will shake up the race in a way that will narrow that gap. Look, I think it's I think DeSantis can win Iowa. I think Trump wins New Hampshire if it were today. South Carolina's kind of a kooky place because you got two South Carolinians in the field.
Right.
I think all this national polling right now is for just for fundraising purposes. So I don't know if you would read too much into it.
All right. Well, take that one step further before we go to Dale. So if Trump were not in the race, who are your top three?
Oh, it's DeSantis, but watch out for Tim Scott.
Yeah.
I think he's serious, and you got to put Pence in there just by virtue of being former vice president.
Okay, I would agree with that. Dale, what you thinking, man?
Bergamentum. That's what I think is happening here. I don't know. Gaps closing in Iowa. That's good for DeSantis. He's got to see that. There's some money issues there with Trump. Some talk about Trump getting indicted again. In the next week. Mark Meadows allegedly pled guilty to some crimes today, and we could be seeing this whole thing next kind of fall apart. And this is where they get Trump, guys. It's not that his polls are going to go up 24 points. But yeah, I think it's there's a race on, like Jeff said, the national polls are what they are. It's the polls in Iowa and New Hampshire right now that matter.
Well, I heard that Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff have seen the evidence, so surely it's true.
Good.
Jeff, next question. What you got, buddy?
Back to the legislature real quick. We've already decided that they were woefully underwhelming this year. But who would you say is or are the winners of 2023? In
terms of our legislative members, you mean?
No, in terms of like who got. Well, you could say members as well. I wouldn't not include them, but I organizations, etc.
Dale, you can go first on that one. What do you think?
I already told you it's the activists. They got exactly what they wanted. They got in there and they fought. They're putting out message after message. The only dumb thing that didn't happen is the AAA declaring that they won the legislative session this year. So I'll go with the activists. They stopped a lot of stuff they didn't want to see happen. The 1 cent off the sales tax, they get to claim victory, but they get to also collect 3 more cents on sales tax forever now.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say the AEA probably did have a good year. Last year they said was their best year ever, but this year they got raises, they got an increase in the budget for education, even though they're last in the nation, and they were able to once again keep meaningful school choice off the table. Didn't even get a vote on the floor, and so I find that to be nauseating. But secondly, I would say. Probably BCA or at least some of their membership. When you see things like House Bill 298 about the porn filter on phones and the fact that the business community was fighting that, I mean, for the love. All that is just say turn it on and we can turn it back off later if you want to, but they didn't want to go down that route. So there's my 2 thoughts. Jeff, your question, what are you thinking?
Well, I the BCA real quick, I think is lost. It's having an identity crisis. I don't know. Is it woke or what is the BCA in 2023? But I'm going to go with you, AEA. But for all the reasons you said, but here's what they're going to do. They're going to go back to their membership. I think if they wanted to, they could call this a success, but maybe they don't want to gloat because they like to keep it coming. But they're going to go back to their membership, calling it a success with the pay raises and holding back any kind of school choice or whatever, and keeping funding at record levels. I mean, they're going to go to their members and say, "This is why you are a member of the AAA," and their members are going to go, "Yes, thank you, Master," and that's how it's going to go. I mean, it's just they are the winners.
All right, we got 2 minutes. Dale, what do you got?
Tucker Carlson is allegedly in breach of contract because he did a tweet yesterday that got like 70 million views or whatever. They got to pull him off. They got to make him stop doing Twitter videos, or what? Jeff, did you text him and ask him, or what?
No, he's busy these days. No, I think he's. I think he knew this was coming.
I look at it and think they must have a darn good contract and the ability to get some serious monetary damages out of him, because I'm pretty sure he is solvent, and I'm also pretty sure that he can sustain in terms of the fan base. I think it was 77 million is what I saw in terms of clicks that he pulled. And by the way, this is also going to be the litmus test for how things work for whether you can survive the loss of a network job and go out there and make. I mean, Glenn Beck's still around. But I think this is next level. I think if we see Tucker Carlson get, a big win here, it's going to show the world that you can go online now and get her done. What you thought?
Also on this lawsuit, real quick, Fox News is a petty organization. This may be frivolous when it's all said and done.
Yeah, well, we'll see, because you can't keep the law says yes, you can have these kind of restrictions. You call them restrictive covenants in a contract, but you cannot restrict someone from being able to perform that which they use to make a living. And so, it's got to be narrow in scope.
Even if you're still paying them.
I don't know. I have to wait and see how the contract was written.
That's how radio. That's how radio non-competes generally work.
Well, okay. So I guess I'll go with that lawyer right there. All right.
Hey, I don't know Tucker Carlson like Jeff, and I'm not a lawyer like you. I'm just making stuff up on the radio like I do.
All right, fellers. Appreciate you both. Good round. That was the Grand Council. That was Jeff Poor from FM Talk 106.5 down yonder in Mobile, host of the Jeff Poor Show and the executive editor for 1819 News. And then Dale Jackson from 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN up in Huntsville. And also, by the way, writes for Yellowhammer News. And then little old me, we call it the Grand Council. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right, covering down on some major ground going across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, Alabama. I'm talking about this show. Goes way on down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, thrown in just for good measure. Well, hey, listen, before we go any further, I got to tell you, the Elm Foundation, I hope you've caught their interview we did with them just a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. What an amazing group. The Elm Foundation out of Huntsville, Elm, E-L-M, it stands for Expect Little Miracles. The Elm Foundation is doing an epic, cool job at putting people back into, a place where they are productive, where they're restoring their self-worth, their values, and they're getting them off the streets. They're providing with a means and a method, a plan actually, for how to become productive again, helping them with the grants necessary to get education, maybe even, child care, all the things it takes to get somebody from where they've had to literally sleeping in their cars to getting back into being a part of society, being a business, owner, or a business, for that matter, someone who is productive for another business. It's very cool how they do it. It's not like the government throwing money at something, seeing if it works. They actually walk with them through the plan, providing accountability, milestones they have to reach. But, folks, it's working. So check them out. Their website is Elm HSV. It's ELMHSV, as in Elm Huntsville, ELMHSV.org. That's ELMHSV.org. And I'm telling you, if you talk to him, by the way, tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, listen, I'm going to jump over to Boomer. I will have had 2 legislative calls, a grand council, and all 3 dippers in one day.
Well, look at you, all 3 dippers.
I don't want to brag or anything.
I mean, that's a good day.
That's a full day. That's either that or a lot of fast talking, one or the other.
Maybe both.
Okay. So number 3 on the triple dipper, praying under fire. Praying under fire. What am I talking about? Well, I got an article here. Interesting. It came from Asia News. North Korean Christians, this is just last week, North Korean Christians arrested for a prayer service. I mean, keep in mind, there are places in this world where there is no freedom like we have here. I mean, you may have, here's the deal. When COVID shutdowns happened, and in some places around the United States, they told you couldn't go to church, it was the anomaly. It was the anomaly. It caught people's attention. And there are pastors, I've spoken to one of the largest churches in the nation. I had a conversation with him, and he said, that'll never happen again. It caught everybody off guard, but you know what? Now everybody's on guard. It's the anomaly. Why? Because we have a constitutional right to our matters of faith. Well, not everywhere in the world can say that. And so here's an article. North Korea. 5 Christians were charged with promoting an underground prayer service. Charged with promoting an underground prayer service. A charge that in a nation where religions are banned under an ironclad communist dictatorship, it's something that winds up having them sent off to labor camps, and I would say even executed at times. So this has happened. The incident occurred on 30 April. It's being reported now in May in the village of Tongam in the outskirts of Suncheon and Pyongyang province. But the reality is that's life in North Korea. It's amazing to me, though, really, that people there even had a chance to hear about God. It says at the place where the worship service was being held, the police seized dozens of Bible pamphlets, arrested everyone present. The five people were praying and reading the Bible among themselves. The source continued, they had gathered among relatives, they were invoking Jesus, and they were arrested. And they're sent off to re-education camps. Now, that's North Korea. But what if I told you that we've got situations occurring like right around, I don't know, the United States, or for that matter, Great Britain, or how about Canada, where people are being arrested for prayer? It makes no sense to me, but here we are looking at people being arrested for prayer. or having to go to court to decide whether they're allowed to pray. Well, prayer under fire is a legit thing, even in a country where you have a constitutional right to it. Case in point, I got this one. This particular article involves the Supreme Court case that came out just a few months ago. But a guy named Joseph Kennedy is a high school football coach, and the U.S. Supreme Court just this past year finally agreed, after 7 years, that the fact that he chooses to kneel at the 50-yard line and pray after high school football games is not a violation of separation of church and state, which, I'll be honest with you, separation of church and state is really not written anywhere except in, Jeffersonian lingo, and there are some that believe that was never intended. But it took 7 years of a fight, and luckily, we actually have a constitution in the United States that gave him the ability to take a fight to the Supreme Court. But the essence of the dispute was that the government cannot establish religion, and the fact that he was paid for as a government employee, that somehow meant that he was violating the law by praying at the 50-yard line of a football field. Well, it's now precedent setting. The fact that he was found to be in the midst of protected practice, worship, prayer, the fact that he was found to be in a protected status is now going to sweep across the nation. In my opinion, this is going to free some people up. In my opinion, if you are at this point worried about whether or not you are allowed to, have a quick prayer gathering during the lunch break at work, or whether or not teachers were allowed to gather in the teachers' lounge and have an early morning Bible study, or if you want to, for that matter, kneel at the 50-yard line and pray because you're a coach, I'd say you've probably just been set free. It's a shame that we have to look at that as being something that is unusual. But here we are looking at a case right now. This is an article that I pulled off of Fox. It was dated just 2 months ago. In the United Kingdom, Great Britain, England, a woman was arrested for the second time. What was her offense? She was standing on the street, across the street from an abortion clinic, silently praying. She was carrying no signs. She was making no noise. She was not part of a crowd. She did not resist arrest. She was silently praying. And it offends the people that run the abortion clinic, so they call the police. And what did the police do? They came and arrested her for the second time. And her offense was silently praying in her head. Her name is Isabel Von Spruce. And it comes just a week after the court had cleared her of criminal charges for breaking what they call their Public Spaces Protection Order, which enforces a censorship zone around the abortion facility. A censorship zone of things inside her head. So let me ask you this. Had she been standing there waiting on a cab, would it have been okay? Had she been standing there talking to a friend, would it have been okay? If she'd been standing on the street corner across the street from the abortion clinic eating a cheeseburger, would it have been okay? Well, the answer to all that's yes. But they looked out the window and they felt like she was praying inside her head. And so what they do, they called the police. The officer who came questioned her as to what she was doing. She said, "I'm not protesting. I'm not engaging in any of the activities that are prohibited." And the officer looked at her and said, "But you said you were engaging in prayer. That is the offense." And she said, "Silent prayer?" And he said, "No, you were still engaging in prayer. It's an offense." At which point they arrested her. And this is the free world. I started with a North Korea story. I did that on purpose. Because, folks, I'm telling you, this is not just a North Korea thing. You've got to watch what is happening in and around the world, and I would say in and around the free world. I've got another example, too. I tell you what, we'll take a break right now. We'll come right back from that. I'll fill you in. But, yeah, praying under fire, it's real. Are you allowed to do it? You are. You are. I would say, measure yourself as to which is the best way to go about it. But at the same time, because, Scripture says causing offense, I get it. But you know what? Guess what? You're allowed. How about that? And if we don't start taking a stand for those things worth taking a stand for, then pretty soon there'll be nothing left to stand for. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, before I finish up this part of the Triple Dipper, which I'm calling Praying Under Fire, just know this, ZLA Solutions. I hope you heard the interview we had with Andrew Ford, president of ZLA, who was here just the other day. But ZLA Solutions, they're doing an amazing amount of work right now, helping businesses, in their words, get better. They do all they can to help businesses make their businesses better. One of the ways they do that is by helping them find the people they need. So if you are looking for a job yourself, you can go to their website, zlausa.com, and check it out. They've got jobs posted all over North Alabama and beyond. But at the same time, if you are a business owner in need of people, give them a call. Go to their website, check them out, zlausa.com. They can find the onesies, the twosies of special niche skills kind of employees you need, or they can find you a whole shift full of people. Doesn't matter. I always say blue collar, white collar, no collar. They can do it. So just check them out. ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. And if you talk to them, I would certainly appreciate you telling them that you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Hey, I'm in this part of the Triple Dipper, and I'm calling it Praying Under Fire. I saved one more story for the very end. This occurred, and I think our Roughly Ann from Huntsville was texting in Pennsylvania. You are correct, Roughly Ann. That's where I was headed. Damon Atkins, a guy in Reading, Pennsylvania. This happened yesterday. Was walking up to a pride rally, carrying a Bible and a sign that had a verse on it. And he stood across the street quoting the verse out loud. And then a police officer approached and told him he needed to stop. Pray tell, why would that be? I saw the video. He didn't get ostentatious. He didn't rebuke the officer. He said, I'm standing here on public property. And the officer told him, if you don't stop shouting insults across the street, I'll arrest you. He wasn't shouting insults. What he was doing was quoting scripture and praying out loud. And a few minutes later, the same officer walked up and said, you need to stop doing that. And he didn't. He said, I'm going to keep doing it. And the officer said, that's enough, and grabbed him. He even said, I'm not being rude. I'm just here to spread the gospel of good news. Jesus Christ saved me. He could save everyone, including you. And the officer responded, I don't care. I'm going to stand here, and you're going to be quiet. And then it says in the article here from CBN, moments later, Atkins began to quote 1 Corinthians 14:33, that for God is not a God of confusion, but one of peace. And he wasn't allowed to finish the verse as the officer named McClure rushed in and pushed him up against the wall, cuffed him, and arrested him. To the cheers, by the way, of the gay pride rally across the street. So the gay pride rallies across the street, large attendance, doing its thing. The one guy's across the street quoting a Bible verse, but he's the one that's apparently being rude and in some way violating the law. And I hope this guy, Damon Atkins in Reading, Pennsylvania, I hope he's got a lawyer who's going to make sure that city understands what's what. Jump over here to the prayer line. To the text line. Ryan from Hazel Green says, don't forget, Phil, you'll have nothing and you'll be happy. Nothing isn't only referring to material belongings. They want your spirituality as well. Dang, man. Jay from Hartselle, the only reason praying would offend anyone would be if their guilt was getting to them. There you go, Jay from Hartselle. I got a caller on the line. Is that Jeff from Indiana? Jeff Rowe, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Phil. Made it through Nashville anyway.
Outstanding. You're making good time.
Oh, yeah. What would we be looking at about the coach that was doing prayer after the football games if the court would have been all liberals? And I don't know what the count was on that, but how close was it? Do you know?
I don't know. Let me look back through my notes. I'll tell you what. While you're talking, I'll try and find that.
But yeah, just think if we'd have had a liberal court on there, then you would be basically silenced. That just goes to show you that the power of the Supreme Court. I think they should take a lot of power away from them because I believe they have too much power because they can be biased and they can write law and basically it's almost impossible to remove one.
Well, the interesting thing is, and by the way, I can't find anywhere in the article that it says what the breakdown count was on that particular ruling, but I do think that it came down on pretty much the usual lines you would imagine, I don't know, man. I look at this and think God knows who He's going to put on that court at the right time. And we needed the Dobbs decision for abortion. We needed this ruling on prayer. And there's no telling what else is going to happen. Trump may not be in office right now, but I'm still praising God for some of the ones that got nominated under his watch to take on a role in the court.
Yeah, the trouble is, God may know who He's going to put on the court, but I believe the devil's in charge right now.
Well,
he's sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Boulevard.
Yeah, well, we do know for a fact. I mean, we're told that he roams the earth like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. But we also know that we've got the guy on our side who comes to give abundant life. So, all right, listen, brother, you be safe on the road out there, all right?
You have a good one, Phil. Thank you.
You too, buddy. Yeah, the bottom line is this: stay on your guard. I mean, it's scriptural. It's 1 Corinthians. What is that right there? Boom on the wall. 1 Corinthians what? 16? Yeah.
1 Corinthians 16, 13 through 14.
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 16. Be on the alert. Stand firm in the faith. Act like men. Be strong, and let all that you do be done in love. The first thing it says is be on the alert. Well, I mean, what are you taught when you're going down range? As a soldier, be on the alert. Don't fall asleep at your post. Man your post and keep your head on a swivel. Be looking around, know your surroundings. Well, the same is true for the climate that we're in right now. I mean, you've got a guy in Reading, Pennsylvania who's arrested for daring to speak out or pray across the street from a gay pride rally. You've got a lady who was praying silently in her head in England who was arrested twice because she was violating the censorship zone. You got, if that doesn't sound a lot like the early stages of North Korea, I don't know what does. But I'm going to tell you, we cannot let our guard down on this stuff, y'all. We can't. There ain't no way in the world we could sit idly by and expect it to be okay. It's going to take people who are willing to pray and then who are also willing to act. There's going to be a time and a place when you have to get up off the knees and go get busy. I don't mean that one is more important than the other. All I'm saying is faith without action is dead. And so if you believe that you've got a right to pray, then pray in the public square too. All good. Because the Supreme Court has said so. At the same time, there's going to be yokels that don't understand the law or they're biased in their own right who may arrest somebody for daring to pray in the public square. And all I'm saying is we as supporters of the rights we have under the Constitution have to be willing to stand next to them when the time comes. We can't let it slide on by. All right, listen, great day. Tomorrow is that day. That's like my favorite segment. Boomer and McQueen tomorrow at 3:30 as far as I know. And then also still got to kind of tweak out a few of the details on the schedule, but it looks like we're going to have John Wall, chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, on to give us the rundown where he thinks this Republican primary is going with, all God's children getting into the Republican primary right now. So first of all, Biden doesn't have to debate, and yet we've got like a slate of people over here that are dying to debate. So it's going to be a hoot. I'm just telling you. Well, anyway, more on that. All right. God, that was a full show, dude.
Full show.
I don't even know where to begin to describe this show. I'm probably going to go home though and look at Charlene and say, I have no more words. You talk for a while. Right. All right, y'all. Have an amazing night. We're back here tomorrow too. We'll see you then.